How much whiskey should you pour? Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. I'm Daniel Winnington, Chancellor of Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. We're drinking budget scotch, and this is a bottle that I've been holding on to because it still is a gift from Peter Golden, if you remember the old days. And a bunch of people have asked me about this one for some reason in the last couple of weeks. I thought, you know what, I'll do another review of it. It's been a while. It's a real budget drinker, 3-year-old scotch, roughly, but we'll see. So this is another thing that's come up. How much whiskey should you pour? And what I'm saying is, I have realized, I think this is a conversation like 3 weeks ago with a friend, that like depending on whose house you're at and they pour you a glass of something, you're gonna have a very different experience. And then depending on the bar you go to, they may not have the same rules for single, double, or things. So here's sort of a synopsis of pouring whiskey to drink roughly neat whiskey. I'm not talking about cocktails. Neat whiskey or rocks whiskey. So first, in a bar, typically, if you go to a bar that understands that people drink whiskey neat and you ask for a neat pour, they'll say single or double. And if you say single, they will most likely pour you 1.5 ounces. If you say double, it will usually be 2 ounces. And that comes from the fact that in a lot of bars, hard liquor is poured by a shot, which is 1 ounce, right? And so a double for 2 shots is 2 ounces. And so it gets this really muddy situation where in a lot of bars, a double is not double the single. Now, in real bars where they're measuring every single thing and they're being careful about it, yes, a double is typically double their single. Now, I have seen in that situation a single be 1.25 ounces. I've also seen it be 1.5 ounces. And so a double could be anywhere from 2.5 ounces to 3 ounces of whiskey. Now, that's a big difference when you're trying to manage your intake and you're like, take a double, I know what I just had. No, you just had 3 ounces instead of 2. You should know that. That's something you should know. And so you gotta kind of, this is super nerdy, but you have to sort of start to pay attention to the volume of whiskey in the type of glass you have. And one of the easiest ways is have all the basic standard types of glasses that you'll get poured whiskey in at home and just start to get an idea for what 1 ounce looks like in your glass, what 2 ounces looks like in your glass. I've been to a bar, man, airport lounges for like, if you ever get bumped up to first class and you get the free access to like the priority first class lounge type thing, you go in there and the alcohol is free and they will pour you obscene amounts of alcohol. I've ordered a neat whiskey before and had them fill half a rocks glass. And I was like, I mean, I guess, thank you. I don't know, this seems unhealthy. Like, I need someone here to share with. This is a lot of alcohol. I mean, this easily was 4 or 5 ounces in one pour, which is nuts. Not a good way to get on an airplane. It's a good way to get kicked off an airplane as you're boarding. So just get a handle on it, get to know, and remember another thing, which is really important, we'll talk about at the end. It's different by bar. It's different by industry professional. I have sat at tables with bartenders and had all of them argue with each other about what is a single, what is a double, what is a shot, should you measure? Yeah. But that's kind of the base standards. If you order something on the rocks, it's pretty typical that they'll put 2 ounces on the rocks. Every once in a while you'll find someone who measures 1.5 ounces onto a rock. But typically you're gonna get roughly a 2 ounce pour. But again, not standard. And if you leave the US, you go into the UK, slightly different habits, standards, and measurements. So pay attention. Let's drink some Highland Mist. This is a super budget scotch. And one of my favorite things about the budget whiskeys, and I find okay, in the craft industry and in the actually kind of expensive whiskeys, I find it infuriating. But in the $8 bottles, I find it kind of endearing. And that is to have an $8 bottle of scotch. I mean, it's not, I think it's like 10 or 12 bucks. And then just have it covered with all of the special language that you could possibly come up with that has no legal meaning. Imported. Well, of course it's scotch, right? So pale dry, that doesn't mean anything. Blended scotch whiskey, that's real, yeah. 100% scotch whiskeys, of course it is. It legally has to be. Because it's called blended scotch. And then down here, a blend of Highland, Lowland, Isla, and Speyside. So basically, everything except Campbelltown is in this blend. And aged for 36 months. And originally selected for the home trade. Guys, I love it. If I ever get in some position where I'm releasing a budget blend whiskey, I am going to go so over the top with the dramatic special language, you just will not be able to stop me. It's going to be so much fun. Okay, so I think some of this has got to be older than 3, but who knows? It smells real freaking new makey. It's got that real grain forward fruit, but barley, but musty funk. It is, it smells like it's coming out of a paper bag. It's not offensive, but it is like, if you are not used to new make and what new make spirit in Scotland tastes like and smells like coming off the still, this is going to be real weird for you. But if you've ever distilled barley, or you've gone to a Scottish whiskey tour and gotten to try some of the new make or smell the new make, then you're going to recognize this. And it basically just is really young spirit. I just got a splinter jammed up in my finger. All right, got it. Thank you, Beryl. Give him back. It tastes, it smells, it is a little smoky. Like, it's really, really mild, but like is this sort of like distant medicinal ashy note sort of floating around in the back. It tastes like new make with a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of caramel. Funk, fruit, a little vanilla, no body, no depth, no finish. It's not offensive if you know and appreciate new make, but it's real weird. Okay, now, industry, personal hangouts. When you're not at a bar, you're not at a restaurant, you're at a friend's house, or you're at a gathering of whiskey nerds or things like that. I have noticed that there are typically 2 directions that people will pour. If you're just hanging out with people who are not drinkers, or they are drinkers but they're not industry people, they will pour you a lot of whiskey. If you're over at their house and you're like, I'll take a bourbon, they will go, and they'll fill it up. You'll get these huge pours. And they think they're doing you a favor. It's like, you know, at a restaurant, they'd never do this for you, but here, you know, you get as much as you want, you know. And I don't like that. I don't mind, like, I'm not going to turn it down. And if it's a house that I only have one whiskey, and it's like, fine, set me up with a whiskey, I'll sip on it for the rest of the night. But when you go to someone who has more than one bottle of whiskey and they know what like, and there's things you can try, what you will find with industry or whiskey obsessed people like our community is you will very often get really small pours. This right here, this is about how much I pour at my house anytime I pour a whiskey. The only exception to that is if I'm going to pour some and then like take a walk, or pour some and sit on the back deck, but I don't want to bring a bottle. And so I'll pour enough that I don't have to keep going back and refill. But if I'm inside and I have access to my whiskeys, then I almost never pour more than this. Almost never. Even if I go back and re-pour the same whiskey, because what I want is the ability to change my mind. I want the ability to take, you know, this is about a ½ ounce right here, half to a quarter. I want the ability to have like a ½ ounce of whiskey and then be like, you know what, I'm going to switch to a bourbon, and then do a little bourbon pour, and then be like, you know what, nope, I'm going to, and then you can have 4 or 5 different whiskeys and you still have barely had a double. And I love that exploration and that trying things. When we pour for people in the vault, we almost always pour really small pours, not because we're trying to hoard the whiskey, but because anybody in that vault is going to want to try at least 5 things, right? So like, we're going to give you a really tiny pour so that you can try 5 things and you're at like 1.5 ounces, right? Even when I'm hanging out with Emma or my dad and we go sit on the back deck, what I will often do is pour a little bit more, like maybe 1 ounce of something really nice, and then we will bring a budget bottle out onto the deck. And then we will slowly sip the nice thing and hang out and talk. And then when that's done, you'll refill with something like a more budget Irish or a budget blend or that kind of thing. But when you're refilling, almost always pour small amounts. Now, my one little bow on this is one of the reasons that I've backed away from drinking cask strength whiskey all the time. I might drink it on my first pour, But when I go out to the deck and hang out for my follow-up, let's pour a few more drams, I'm always looking for a low 40s. Because what I've realized is there's a very real thing of like just pouring half pours that always feels like you're not having a lot of whiskey, but when it's 60+% alcohol, you're really getting 1.5 pours every time you pour as far as ethanol is concerned. And that adds up really fast. And it shortens the amount of time you get to hang out and have whiskey with your friends, and it shortens the amount of whiskey you get to try. And this is one of the reasons I've started shifting backwards into like, man, I just really want really well-made whiskey in the 40s. And maybe one cask strength sample a night, and then after that I'm like, I'm good. I'm gonna shift to more large produced or lower proof things. But, as my dad says, your mileage may vary. I hope that was helpful. Cheers to you, and I'm really glad you're here. For the most low-proof, budget-friendly, half-ounce pour channel on YouTube. It's this one. Like and subscribe.